See here. Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight. I'm your host, Alexis, and I'm joined by David Francisco to our S.H.I.E.L.D. reaction commentary series that we've been doing now for 12 weeks now, and now this is week 13 with episode 13 of season 1. This is going to be T.R.A.C.K.S. And this episode, let's see here. This episode was actually broadcast on February 4th, 2014, and this was written by Lauren LaFranc and Rafe Judkins and directed by Paul Edwards. Some of these names don't necessarily ring a bell, but maybe they come back. I'm not quite too sure. And when it aired, it was got 6.62 million viewers. So this was February 4th. And the last episode, which was Seeds, was January 14th. So about a 3-week, 3-week break in the original broadcast of the show. And we want to make sure to keep track of that as we go, as we have been, just to keep people in mind of how it was to, go through this experience the first time as it was happening. It was pretty massive gap there. And of course, for those of you who are watching and coming back to us, of course, this particular show is catered to the S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, the longtime S.H.I.E.L.D. fan that wants to keep coming back and talking about the show long after. Of course, we're now approaching 4 full years after it ended its original broadcast. And we've now approached literally 10 years since its first season has concluded its broadcast. So it's really interesting to see the time that has passed on here. But really, if you're a first-time watch, S.H.I.E.L.D. person, I would, direct you to other people who are watching this show for the first time that I think will give you a much better experience. We will not, unfortunately, do that because any and all spoilers when it comes to characters or plot threads throughout, or arcs or themes that happen throughout all 136 episodes of this show will inevitably come into play. For instance, and one of the comments actually brought this up that we'll read right now for the last episode. There was some interesting seeds, if you will, that were kind of planted in the last episode. Of course, that being the title of the episode, but that some seeds were planted that really kind of we can see now with the benefit of hindsight and knowing where characters ended up and where certain things ended up that we can actually talk openly about them now. So, so for instance, in that thing that we were just saying now, I mean, there were certain characters that don't even come into play until the 5th season. So that's what I mean by potential spoilers of that happening. So now we're on the 13th episode called T.R.A.C.K.S. As we get into this episode, throughout the many years of being a S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, I do have to say that this is, to me anyway, one of my favorite all-time episodes of the show. This is not the only episode that features this particular approach. I always like to ask David before we even start, do you remember much about this episode? All the way back from season 1?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. Well, we'll see how that goes. But they use a style here, and I was gonna say more about it, but we'll get it. Well, let's see if it'll jog his memory when we get into the episode. But before we get into this episode, David, we have some comments, I'm sure, right, from last week.
Well, I'm reading the ones for episode 11.
Oh, we have some from 11.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Let's see what was said there.
Okay, so first one is Shield Vids. Says Sky is the audience surrogate, but she is also the catalyst to Coulson's start of questioning S.H.I.E.L.D. She represents that, and as the first season goes on, we see him adopt that mindset. So, yeah, very much. Which one was this one? The Magical Place, right? Yeah. And then Silva Surfa says, this is my favorite episode of the first dozen. This was also the moment I started liking Sky. I found her character annoying and thought Chloe Bennett wasn't a strong actress up to this point. Chloe really shines here and continues to grow into a fantastic actor. Agree. And also said, I love the scene with Coulson and Raina. The energy between Clark and Ruth is just and it's a heart emoji.
I mean, you and I felt it, right? We were just like, whoa, what a scene.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And you know what? I have to apologize to you, my friend. Did I ever get a chance to get back to you? Look, a lot has happened these last few weeks. Did I ever respond to your message about wanting to know what music was used in that? I was trying to find the best way to go about it, but I wasn't sure if it was the correct music.
I think you gave me an example, but I don't think it
wasn't the exact music.
Yeah.
It wasn't okay. So I apologize to you about that. It got lost in all the shuffle.
Oh yeah, it's fine, dude. I kept looking through all the first season music right there, and I'm like, where is it? And maybe it was like in a little part of it or something.
Right.
It was hard, for sure. And this one's from Check Dubs. The spider-like memory-altering machine working away at Coulson's exposed brain was probably the first indication I got that the writers were just dying to push the darkness of the show a little bit further.
Yeah.
And he also said, the AV Club and IGN reviews are beyond frustrating, mostly because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is being held to a higher standard than other comparable comic book TV shows. I watched Arrow and The Flash back in the day, and neither of those shows did much of anything in their first seasons. I don't know about Arrow. The big season arc stuff didn't come into focus until later on in both of those shows' first seasons, and nobody complained. The main character on both of those shows were woefully underdeveloped, and nobody complained. In fact, both Arrow and The Flash, and The Flash were lauded as being the pinnacle of comic book TV in their first seasons. Even though both were moving at the exact same pace as AOS was, I think we need to read between the lines here. What both AV Club and Eric Goldman were really pissed off about was the fact that we weren't getting big cameos from Hollywood A-listers like RDJ or Chris Evans. They weren't interested in the show and what it was trying to do with the MCU. They just wanted to cheap thrills, and their frustration and not getting those cameos and references was souring their experience of the show. Souring
there's a lot.
Sorry.
There's a lot to say with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot to go. I want to, if we can, for a minute, we'll put aside what was said about Arrow and the Flash for a second. Well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and tackle that on right now, because there's not much for me to say. I've only ever seen the third season of the Flash, and it was decent. From what I hear, it was a masterpiece in comparison to the last season of the Flash. So the thing about the CW shows is that they didn't necessarily have longevity of quality. They had longevity. I mean, they went on for a long time. But as they went on, the quality began to dip, and it became the usual TV, that lasted too long syndrome. That being said, the whole era of the CW superheroes was really interesting. And honestly, I'll say this as and I think all of us S.H.I.E.L.D. stans should own up to this. We were very much jealous at the party that was going on at the CW, right? Because they had all these shows. They had all this love from these Collider AMC Screen Junkies people, right? And then whenever the discussion, if it ever did, came to ABC and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it would all be just like womp womp and like what? And it's kind of like, I don't know. It's not that great. And if you really want a good comic book show, go to these on this other channel instead. That's what it felt like. And honestly, for those of us who love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and by the way, there are plenty of people who love both. David, I'm sure, had some seasons and shows that he liked. He liked them both. But I feel like, for those of us who are really hardcore S.H.I.E.L.D. people, like, hey, and maybe we have dabbled, maybe we haven't, into the overall storytelling over there in those old CW shows. But the point there being is, from our perspective, it didn't necessarily, stand to what S.H.I.E.L.D. was doing, even at this early stage. Again, you have to keep in mind that for them, the first season of the show was garbage. For us who love the show, it was underappreciated and unfairly targeted when other things that were far lesser in our view were being heralded as like these big accomplishments. it was just so confusing because at this time and remember, S.H.I.E.L.D. came out in 2013, 2014. That was the beginning of this wonderful renaissance period, if you will, of all this comic book stuff and content that we were getting. And, for the most part, 99% of that stuff that came out, it was like, I'm sorry, but it was met with a big hug. It was embraced. It was celebrated. There were the occasional things that were not, and that probably is indicative of quality. I can name you maybe 5 shows that weren't, and unfortunately, S.H.I.E.L.D. was one of them. When it had no business not being celebrated. That's kind of the thing that you have to understand and remember about being a fan of the show, is that at this time, when everything was being celebrated and appreciated and heralded, our little show that was being mercilessly savaged for unrealistic expectations. And I'm very glad that this person was saying about, how frustrating it has been. And you know what? I'm quite happy that we introduced reading these reviews at the time that these episodes came out, because it helps to take us back in time, right? Like, how were these episodes received in that moment? But as we're reading, David, as we're going through the reviews week in and week out, again, it hasn't been wholly negative. There have been some positive things that these people have pointed out in their reviews, but at the same time, it has been, and I'm sure, and I've sensed it has been frustrating from your perspective as well. When I read these things out loud, that they're not getting it, they're missing it. How they're oftentimes just they're saying that stuff is missing, but it's not. It's actually there. And then, but what has been noticed is, on the regular, there have been in these reviews we've been singling out, mind you. Yes, it has been a regular thing that a good paragraph or so is dedicated to like what's missing and what they perceive to be missing, which is the comic book stuff. And I always go back to one of my old friends who would watch these shows. He would watch all the CW shows. He was a big comic book fan. He watched all the comic book movies, DC and Marvel. Except, of course, what's the one he didn't watch? The one that we're talking about right now. And when I would push him on this, I don't recall if it was the first discussion we had on the show, or maybe it was the 7th, who knows. But I kept pressing and pressing. And at one point I just asked, okay, is it because it's not about a comic book hero? Is it because there's not a main character that has a costume? Is that why you're not watching the show or have no interest in it? And he literally just said, yeah. He literally just said, it's hard for me to get invested into a show that has no central comic book character that I already know. That was eye-opening. And I'm pretty sure, hey, and look, this is always proven to be the case, because look how all of a sudden, I know that this is going off on a major tangent at this point, but I don't care. We're going to have this discussion right now. Why do you think so many people all of a sudden expressed an interest in the show 3 seasons from now, when San Diego Comic-Con happened and you saw Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? It was the promotional for season 4. Why were they all of a sudden interested in season 4? Because it had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Ghost Rider. Oh my god. Yeah. Whenever they brought on a character that they give a shit about, they were like, okay, I guess I'll watch. And you know what? God bless John Schnepp. John Schnepp was one of my favorite personalities and one of the dearest, best human beings you would ever watch in any of these shows. He passed away, unfortunately, very prematurely. Back in 2018, I want to say. He was such a loving individual, and anytime he had praise, or even anytime he had, not praise, he would always be hilarious, and he would crap on things. Man, his rants, I miss him. I miss that man. I miss his commentary so much. I was very sad to hear when he died. But even him, but I always appreciated his honesty. And he pretty much said that he watched the first episode of season 4 of S.H.I.E.L.D. for Ghost Rider, and he was like, and he literally said this, all the Ghost Rider stuff was great, but all the other stuff with the characters that he didn't really know were like, yeah, I guess, whatever, but do we really have to have this? basically saying it's like, why couldn't we just have had a solo Ghost Rider show and not the Shield stuff? And I don't know. You know, it's comical, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like as so much more information comes out, people just got this stink for the show, and no matter what they did, it wasn't enough to bring them back to it. I mean, if Ghost Rider didn't do it, and it did for a few episodes, but then evidently it lost a bunch of people. What can I say? But the whole point there being is there was a lot of hypocrisy and dishonesty, I would say, about what people really wanted out of the show. And unfortunately, people had very different expectations. And look, we are now in July of 2024. We are watching. We are now 13 episodes into this first season. I got to say, look, as we have been saying throughout these many weeks already, and David, I know this is not your favorite show. It may not even be your favorite comic book show, but I know you like the show a lot. But can I just say, it has aged tremendously well. We are now like 10 plus years after these episodes have aired. And you have to keep in mind that we're now in this era. And, you know, one of the things that S.H.I.E.L.D. was criticized for was like not having a bigger budget. As if that was going to fix anything. Let's just be real here. If it had a bigger budget, it would have been a worse show because it would have had half the episodes, and even then people still wouldn't have watched. Let's just be real here. For whatever reason, this first season burned that bridge, and no matter what they did, it was, unless they somehow magically brought all 6 of the Avengers for like a cameo appearance, maybe that would have brought them back for one day, and then they would have left. That's what would have happened if they had done that. But regardless of the fact, we now have the benefit of having seen a number of these big budget TV shows that they wanted out of S.H.I.E.L.D. And guess what? It didn't work out. And I think we've made clear why that hasn't worked out. So that's where we are. I want to say I about addressed most of what was in that statement. Did you want to say anything about that, David?
I think you pretty much did everything. I mean, part of the reason, yes, it was kind of like a biased view between this show and the CW shows. And a lot of it, though, is just because they had more to talk about with the CW shows than they do with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they have something to reference within those shows. Like with The Flash, they can just go, oh, yeah, this is based off this comic, blah, blah, blah. And they can go into deep dives and everything, do all the things that they want to do to talk about it and everything. They just had no content with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's why they rather just shit on it because that's the most that they can do.
Yeah. And again, for those S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, keep your heads held up high. Because look, who got to walk away from the party with dignity? Did those CW shows get to walk away with dignity, being canceled one after the other after half of their audience had left and abandoned them and after they weren't even being covered by any of these networks? No, I don't think they were. And, you know, their heydays were long in the past, whereas S.H.I.E.L.D. consisted or maintained, well, actually not even maintained, it improved significantly and maintained that quality throughout the entirety of its lifespan.
Mm-hmm. It was honestly so sad when the CW shows first started, Arrowverse shows first started. I used to watch this YouTube channel called SourceFed Nerd, and they had a superhero roundup, and they would talk about all the shows that came out. Arrow, Flash, I think at the time, also maybe like Netflix also might have had a couple of shows.
Daredevil would have been in 2014, or I think, you know, at 2015, I would say. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't...
Basically, they had like 5 shows to talk about. I can't remember all of them, even now. I know Supergirl at some point, too, and all that. And it was an exciting moment for me. That was in high school still when that was happening, so I had something to look forward to. But yeah, they would just talk about it, they'd be excited and everything, and then you get to the last season of The Flash, and the channel's gone by then and everything, so that sucked. But the people that still did it, they had their own channels and started doing like a mini roundup of sorts and all that. But they would talk about the last season of The Flash, and we're just like, the fuck is going on? Like, I don't care what is happening here. Why did you make this storyline? These powers don't make any sense. And all that. They're just utterly confused. And even one of them who mentions that someone who was originally doing these shows, he was a huge fan of The Flash, and she goes, I am so scared to ask him about his thoughts about this show. Like, it was just so sad how it dipped. But not this show though. It really kept going up. You can have some complaints maybe in the last 2 seasons. I know I talked to someone once saying like, I feel like they're just trying like really hard.
A lot of people have.
I can understand.
To be fair, there's a sizable amount of people who have a number of issues with the last 2 seasons. I wouldn't say that we're like absent of that. We have some minor quips about those last 2 seasons, but I want to say that look, on the whole, they were still strong seasons of TV.
For sure.
And they still kept up the quality. I'm like...
I can go, like, this is a great ending. I can still, like, enjoy it. Still feel comfortable rewatching the entire... I mean, doing it now, rewatching the entire show and all that. Whereas with The Flash and Arrow, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow... I can only say...
I forgot about that show. Yeah,
Legends of Tomorrow. That one was just always just fun. Like, it at some point you realize it's just a ridiculous show. Let's just do some fun stuff. And like they kept going at it and it was fun. But with Arrow and Flash, I can honestly just say like watch first 2 seasons of Arrow, watch the first season of The Flash, and it's kind of it. Because those were the best. That's why I kind of disagreed with the Jack Dubs here, saying the first season didn't really do much. I'm like,
well, you know what? Then that's his perspective, and he's it's fair for him to have that. But definitely, most people love that first season of Arrow. They love it. I haven't seen it, but people love that first season, and they love those first few years of that CW era. And again, ABC, to their own credit, they tried to do some of that, but and I'm sure they wanted to get to it a lot quicker, but they were really having a hard time keeping S.H.I.E.L.D. on the air as it is. Mm-hmm. They had a hard time of it that first year. And every other year where they tried to do spin-offs, it didn't quite work out. Agent Carter was the only one that made it off the ground. And unfortunately, I don't even know, it only lasted 2 seasons. Then came Marvel's Most Wanted, which had a pilot, and they didn't like it, so they just didn't order a series for it. The other, I guess, is it considered a spinoff? Is Inhumans considered a spinoff? Even though to me, I always suspected ABC wanted to position Inhumans as the successor to S.H.I.E.L.D. Because at that point, it was pretty clear that they were intending 5 to be the last season. Mm-hmm. The writers and producers wrote and designed that season to be the final season. And then Inhumans, it failed spectacularly to the point where ABC was like, I think we want you guys to come back because we got no other options here. That's always been my suspicion anyway of what's happened there. But they did try to do spinoffs, but they never got to the point where any of them were that successful or they were on at the exact same time as S.H.I.E.L.D. So that being said, Netflix did have its own version of Heroes from 2015 to 2018. But that also, again, like it couldn't be sustained. You had a great first 2 seasons of Daredevil, Jessica Jones season 1, Luke Cage season 1. Everything was going great. Then Iron Fist came and it's like, uh-oh. And then the Defenders came and then was like, and I didn't see any episode after the Defenders of any of those. I know that Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Daredevil all had other seasons that came after. Didn't see one of them.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the only one because those shows all got canceled and were booted unceremoniously. Mm-hmm. So again, I asked those disgruntled S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, who was it really in the end that got to walk away with grace and dignity and got to end on its own terms? Because from where I stand, S.H.I.E.L.D. seems to be about the only show that got to do that. And that, I think, is cosmic justice at its finest. David, what else do we got here for comments?
We got quite a few for episode
It seems
12.
that we do, yeah. So let's go.
Yeah. Shieldvid says the episode is called Seeds and it plants many seeds for future plot lines. I think this is the one you mentioned, right?
Yes.
Sky's powers fits in his potential for villainy from people using his ideas and the hints of Hydra inside the shield that may or may not be on purpose, like Avery and the agent with his cyanide pill, or the Bucky name among shield agents. But the biggest is how the camera pans toward pants toward when talking about lies, evil, and death.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I agree with that completely, and I didn't catch it at all. And there's no way to catch any of that at all when you're watching the show for the first time. But there's definitely a lot of stuff there that when you look back on it, it's like, huh, that's really interesting. All right, next.
Silver Sofa says, good to see you two again. Hope all is well. The episode is one of my least favorite episodes of season 1, but does have one of the most important deleted scenes of the series, in my opinion. There was a scene that reveals Simmons had a one-night stand with another agent at the academy. Ironically, this agent was played by her now real-life husband. This is pivotal as it shows Simmons already had Fitz in the friend zone. That's in parentheses. And she has a habit of jumping in the sack with men that she don't know well.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Will the Astro?
Will
the
Astro?
Will. Oh man, that's
not slut shaming her, but it does reveal her different view of Fitz, as Fitz is lost in the love with Gemma and never gave up hope or banged a random intern while searching for her in season 3. That's crazy though.
okay.
Deleted scene.
That is a really interesting. That's. Oh man, I did not want to discuss slut shaming on the show, but here we are. I know a lot of people, and it seems like Silver Surfer might have been in the same state of mind, gave Gemma a lot of crap for her forming a bond and relationship with Will the astronaut when we get to it in season 3. Quite frankly, I mean, I don't know what else was supposed to happen. At that point, what serious expectation was there that she would ever come back to Earth?
Yeah.
That's where I take it, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of
then
the only excuse, really.
Exactly, and then when she comes back to Earth, it's not like she doesn't feel terrible about it. Like, she's immediately like, oh my god. About it, and now there's this other thing hanging up in the air, and it's awkward the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, for me, it's not something to... It was used to great effect for the drama of the relationship, you know, and growing these characters. But as a personal, like, judging thing, I never found there to be... I mean, when I watched the episode for the first time, did it hit me in the gut like a ton of bricks? Absolutely. But that was the point. That was the point. You weren't supposed to feel that way. So, yeah. Interesting stuff. Next.
Silver Sofa says, definitely research the behind-the-scenes drama of season 3.
Okay.
Will the astronaut was supposed to be high for the entire back end of season 3, and Brett Dalton was supposed to be done with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after season 3, episode 10, but was recast as Hive due to the actor playing Will being fired. He had substance abuse issues and was difficult on set. Dang. Elizabeth Hanstrid's YouTube channel had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. watch-alongs and fantastic interviews with cast in it to reveal a bunch.
Okay, I want to thank you so much for bringing this to my attention, because this is a new piece of S.H.I.E.L.D. lore that even I didn't know about. Because this is actually kind of crazy. I didn't think at all, while watching season 3, that any of this was even a thing. To me, it always just seemed like, oh yeah, of course they'd bring back Brett Dalton to finish out his third and final season on the show as Hive. Okay, sure. And it ended up working out pretty well, honestly. But this is actually really fascinating to hear about this. I'm going to have to go and look for one of the videos where she discusses this. Because she does have great interviews on her channel, as I mentioned weeks ago. So that might be something to look into. But thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. I can't even believe I'm saying this. This is just nothing. I didn't realize this. Will, interesting. Very interesting. David, what do you even say?
No, yeah, it's cool. Cool info. Well, I mean, upset about what was it?
The person that had the issue. Yeah.
That sucks. Silver Surfer also said that was a lot of S's. As for fighting choreography, the May versus Ward fight in season 1 finale is when I noticed it leveled up, which I totally forgot about that. You know, I should probably, once we get there, I'll probably maybe redecide my decision.
No, I would agree with Silver Surfer. I think at the end of season 1 when it became more noticeable, like, hey, something's different here. And when we get to season 2, wow, like something really, really improved there. Can you actually read Jack Dubs' response to Silver Surfer?
Sure.
So this is the comment you just read about Will being recast. It says, "I would love to know what the original plans were."
With the original plans for season 3 were, as we all know now, so much stuff was chopped and changed to take into account the various comings and goings. We were supposed to get more from Joey. We were supposed to get more from Dr. Garner. And as you mentioned, we were supposed to get more from Will, or at least a version of Hive that was Will. We were also supposed to get more with the Secret Warriors before the Marvel Studios Marvel Entertainment schism. And that saw Feige turn his back on the Marvel TV shows that he had no involvement in, and the scrapping of the plan for 2018 Inhuman movie. But put pay to that. What? Sorry, scrapping of the plan for 2018 Inhumans movie. Put pay to that.
So
the money went to that or something like that.
Yeah. The Inhumans movie was never something that Kevin Feige wanted to do, reportedly. It was something that he was pressured to announce by the then CEO of Marvel Entertainment, Ike Perlmutter. He was pressured to announce that movie because he wanted to do that crossover with the TV shows. Feige never wanted to do that, and that's how we didn't get an Inhumans movie. And then Ike Perlmutter moved forward with putting that project on Jeff Loeb and finding somebody to do it as a TV show. And then again, it was just a cursed idea from the very beginning. Not that it couldn't work out that greatly. If you wanted to do, honestly, a great Inhumans TV show, I mean, S.H.I.E.L.D. was already taking care of that. They had a lot of great stuff with the Inhumans on this show. I mean, to me, they basically made them feel more like the X-Men because of how, society was responding to the emergence of Inhumans on this show. But if you wanted to tackle the actual royalty and the actual, the humans that live on the moon, why would you go to Scott Buck? Scott Buck, the showrunner behind Iron Fist. Well, we all know that he was hired because he knows how to keep costs down. And if that's your main priority, well, that was mission accomplished. But as we saw from the rest of the show, it was a disaster. If you really wanted to do a good Inhumans show, why didn't you just call Marissa Tancharoen and Jed Whedon? Like, yeah, I know S.H.I.E.L.D. was going on, but like, hey, why weren't they considered? When they were already doing Inhumans for years and years. And you already work with them every day. But you know what? This comment that we just got here, I think it's important for people to understand. This is what I mean by how talented. Now again, that isn't to say that luck can't be entwined in talent. It very much is in this business for sure. But keep in mind, all those things very much are true. But I don't think it dings season 3 anything. Like, it still ended up going through, and they were able to complete it in spite of all of these problems. Now, this wouldn't be the first time. There are plenty of characters that get some setup, but then are just like taken away like nothing. And there are various reasons for that. But sometimes throughout the run of the show, there have been instances in which the actors no longer wanted to be on the show or had to be somewhere else. Trip, who we will meet in the next episode, ended up, I think, getting hired somewhere else. And when they were writing season 2, they realized they couldn't do much with him, and so he was the one that was made to be the sacrificial lamb early on in season 2. Joey, they were very clearly planning to do more with him, but he just left the show. And when that happens, you really can't do much if the stuff is already set up. You kind of have to like skirt it under the rug and move on. So yeah, but I think it should just remind people of how good they were at stitching this stuff together when all these plans are falling through. And as for the whole Secret Warriors thing, I mean, I don't know, honestly, what Jed and Marissa were thinking in their heads, or what Jeff or Jeffrey Bell were thinking was going to come from the Marvel Studios side, when at that point they were already kind of like diverging. You could make the argument that because this was teased at the end of season 2, they were banking on that connection of Joss Whedon being in the movie space. But when he left, when Age of Ultron was done, he had parted ways, and whatever connection there was to the movies is gone. The only reason, I guarantee you, as Emma said in her video that we promoted on various instances on this show, the only reason why S.H.I.E.L.D. got that helicarrier shout out was because Joss Whedon directed that movie. I doubt Kevin Feige would have cared to do that.
Okay. And Jack Dubs said, season 1, episode 12. For me, it's a so-so to borderline passable episode. Had Donnie Gill and Agent Weaver not made appearances in later episodes, thus giving this story some degree of notoriety, I would be close to calling Seeds a bit of a dud. Be it Fitz, Simmons, Sky, and Ward's trip to the also bland S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy, or Coulson and May's Mexico stakeout B-plot, whole thing just grinds along with any sense of dynamicism or urgency. But having said all that, with the episode now out of the way, the path is clear for the utterly sublime season 1, episode 13, Tracks and Beyond. Let the good times roll.
Jack Debs, we're on the same page, you and I here, because look, I think there were some really good moments in Seeds, as you saw in our reaction last week. It's like there were some moments that we were getting sucked into it. Mm-hmm. But mostly, if I were to make a list of least enjoyable episodes, or just least episodes of the show, this was always kind of on that list. If I'm being honest with you, it's like, hey, again, you're talking to somebody who, and David and I agree this, there's no bad episode of the show. Like every episode is just like, we're in it because we love the show and we love these characters. But as with anything else, there are always some that are not as enjoyable to revisit. And yeah, to me, Seeds is one of my least favorite episodes of this season. In fact, if you're going to ask me right now, well, let's do this right now, David. Since we have, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Because we've been talking about this for weeks, and I think it's time to start. And you know what? We don't have to answer this now. We can maybe have this in your mind after we watch this episode. But what I want us to do is think back at the 12 episodes we've already seen, and think about, I don't know about ranking them, maybe not ranking them, but just thinking about like what was the favorite and which is the least favorite. I would think for me, I'm looking at here. Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think Seeds is probably, it has a really good scene, particularly with Coulson and Sky, that I love. But I think it might be my least favorite episode of the season though so far. If I'm comparing it to everything else that we've already viewed, yeah, like, but I mean, to me, I would say I Spy, Girl in the Flower Dress would be at the bottom of, or The Well, maybe even The Well.
Yeah, I think for me, The Well might be my
least
favorite, because I mean, a little bit of a war-centric episode, and upon rewatch, don't really care much about his background. I know it's like very important, but like I just don't care about it as much as everyone else's. And I mean that has to do just because everyone else makes it to the end of the series and all that. So like it's kind of biased and everything, but that's kind of my head around that.
Yeah, I think like the Girl in the Flower Dress and I Spy are important character episodes. So I think The Well is the one that I get the least out of as the more I revisit. Mm-hmm. The Bridge is a strong episode, but it was a bridge episode. It was not much happened. It was just more of like it was an in between episode. The Bridge, which was when Coulson gets kidnapped at the end, which is still a strong episode. Yeah, it's but then yeah. If you're gonna ask me though, what are my favorites? That would be harder, I would say. I would go with the pilot. I would go with Fidzed. And The Magical Place.
I'll have to go with The Magical Place.
Yeah.
Just because that one scene with Coulson and... what's her name?
Wait, who? Oh, and Reyna.
Reyna, yeah. Coulson and Reyna. I think that's still like the most standout scene, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll be curious to see what you think about this one. Tracks. Do you have any more comments?
Last one. Gary Marshall says, welcome back. Fridays have not been the same without you. Regarding the...
Oh, thank you for saying that, man. I'm sorry that we have not... did we miss one or 2 Fridays? We missed 2 Fridays.
2.
I do apologize for that. Things have been really hectic and busy, surprisingly, but we're hoping to get back on track now.
Yeah. Regarding the use of Fitz's Christian name, I don't think it's explicitly stated, but he hates his name. Probably something to do with his father. So everyone just uses his surname. In fact, Gemma only
Which is probably why, let me stop you right there, which is probably why it was used excessively in the Agents of Hydra arc.
Yeah.
And why his father would constantly refer to him as Leopold.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you are correct from that state of mind. Even though it's never said out loud on the show, that is a good inference.
Yeah. Gemma only says Leopold 3 times during the whole series and only once to him in person. As you referenced, Gemma calls him Leo in Season 2, Episode 15, which is ironically... Oh, Leopold, sorry. In Season 2, Episode 15, which is ironically the episode where Real Shield invade the base and Fitz and Gemma make up. The only other times she says his full name are in Season 5 and Season 7, where she just refers to him in third person. You can skip this part in your recap.
This is yeah, I read this. It's kind of a track on the number of times they refer to each other.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting. For those of you who want to look at the comment on Gary Marshall's comment, it's on the Seeds reaction video, and you'll be able to see it there. It is quite lengthy, but actually quite impressive. And I appreciate anybody making the effort to bring us this information. And this also goes to all of you who comment on these videos and keeps this discussion going. I sincerely want to thank you all for doing this and keeping up with us, because I think we all love this show. And I think the fact that we're continuing to re-experience and relive this together, I think is what making this really work all so well. So thank you all for those comments. And I believe we are now ready to begin our dive into the 13th episode, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so make sure you have your copy of the episode ready. And again, as a reminder, the full audio will be on the audio-only version on our podcast feed, and then, of course, the reaction will be more of a truncated reactions, like a reaction video that you would find on YouTube, which is right here when you're watching this video. Let's go ahead and cue up our video.
No. Well, thank you, Agent Coulson. And I have a message for you. The clairvoyant told me to say hello.
So this is the first time it feels like we're beginning to pull these threads together.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode, we're hitting the ground running, as you'll see right now.
This guy tracked down an invoice from one of his shell companies. He made a big purchase recently.
$10 million.
I just remember something in this
Any
episode.
idea what it is? No clue.
We get the cameo.
Okay.
Of,
Oh, yeah.
They've hired a private security outfit to transport the purchase. Former military, ex-mercs.
And you think Quinn's on that train?
No, but I believe they're delivering the item to Quinn himself. If everything goes as planned, Cyber-Tech security team won't even know we were on the train.
So we're going in undercover.
Don't you love, by the way, how this is already going?
Yeah.
We have not had an episode this far into the show where things are just like, here we go, let's get into it.
Thanks, Dad. Who looks far too young to have a daughter my age.
Like we've built the team up to this point that we're now ready to just hit the ground running with these kind of setups. And then here we are.
Took it okay when I told him.
Wait, you told him?
How May doesn't give a fuck.
It's like, why?
I don't know. You tell me how great it is, laddie.
American then. That's a better idea.
Oh, that was really good.
Yeah, I'm gonna say right here, I love my European brothers and sisters, but it's so crazy how they can just turn off their accent like that.
Right?
How? How do they do that? It's like this. They have this ability to just completely wash away their accents, and I'm like, what?
6-month anniversary with a whirlwind trip all over Europe. Oh. Well, technically, we met 6 months ago, but he didn't ask me out till last month, so our official 1-month anniversary isn't until next Saturday.
I'm almost a gadget guy. Maybe sometimes I want to do things with my bare hands.
You make the gadgets with your bare hands.
By the way, you didn't catch what he just said there about sometimes he wanted to do things with his bare hands, and we're about what? Remember in the pilot, what he said? What did May say to him? If you want to be in the field, Agent Fitz, you got to learn how to get your hands dirty. So we're already a long way away from that pilot. Wait, what Simmons does here?
What are you
Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting into character. My undercover persona harbors residual resentment to her absent American father.
doing? Think all that backstory is necessary?
Past events, like that unfortunate incident at the hub.
It's good to keep that in mind, right?
Yeah.
She's kept it in mind that how bad that was a mess up, you know?
All Mom ever wanted was your love. To be with you. At our 2-story Victorian home in
His
the
face.
Cotswolds.
I love it.
But could you even give her a moment? What with your banking job requiring you to travel to the States from Tuesday to Saturday every other week? No!
I'm terribly sorry.
And then you have this.
Oh my god. It's
As
like,
for you, now is your chance to do better. Why don't you see that you take it?
Thank you, sir.
also his face was exactly like mine. It was so funny.
Had any time for her, but you made time for your work and your prostitutes.
And then,
Dude, this is so great.
everything about that was perfection. Everything about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Even the Stan Lee cameo in there was like perfect.
Okay, Simmons. I appreciate all your preparation.
Don't you want to know which marine life we encountered?
Ward, are you in position?
Hey, give her credit. She prepared for this.
Yeah.
Ward! We've been made. No, Renee! Coulson, we gotta jump!
I mean, what do you do at that point?
Yeah. Great start. For sure.
Right? Only like what? Let me see. Like 9.5 minutes into the episode. And like, wow.
So many things happen in an instant.
Right.
Again, slight improvement from last episode. Like, the camera stays longer and all that. But then this is also far more impressive because close quarters and everything. Great.
To me, and we've said this many times, and we'll continue to say it many more times, this is really a show that just grows on the go. They learn on the go.
The train, it just...
Yep. Vanished. Which I might add, not easy. Not a grenade exactly. Might be some kind of cloaking mechanism.
Maybe it created some kind of portal. Jumped the train there.
It's running.
Yeah, it's been hot-wired.
This is,
Suspicious?
I was gonna say fortuitous. Let's get out of here.
Are you beginning to recall more about what happens here?
Not really.
No?
I just remember it goes back
okay.
and forth between everyone's
Okay.
perspective. That's all I know.
Holotable on. Holotable activate.
What I like about this scene here is that, you know, for as much crap as Fitzsimmons and Skye get, especially in this first half of the season about like how incapable they are at being in the field with certain things, it is nice to have a reminder here that when you give their responsibilities to Ward and Coulson, they're just completely, they don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. They can't do it. Yeah. I mean, look at this.
Checking alternate routes. If it's somewhere on Earth, we'll find it. It's pretty tricky, right? I couldn't even find the on button.
That is so relatable. You couldn't find.
And I think Fitzsimmons do something more like.
Nope.
Agent Coulson, it's gonna be all right. We found your people. The train, it's
Wheels up in 5.
This episode is just so chaotic. You don't know what's gonna happen next at all. Unless, I mean, obviously for the first time. I mean,
it was an amazing entrance by May. I gotta tell you. Fucking just straight up murders somebody, putting a knife to their back, and just like wheels up in 5. By the way, can we just do a quick shout out to, again, the production design and the locations, wherever they're at. They're probably somewhere in California. I don't care. Like, I totally buy that they're in the Italian Riviera. Mm-hmm. I it just feels that way.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Why are you smiling?
You called me sweetheart.
Agent May is a world-class agent. I'm sorry. She is perfect. Look at how she's handling every bit of this. Already kind of knowing what's going to happen here.
Let me help. You know, we have this stuff for a reason.
I'm sure the Felinda people are getting a lot out of the scene. I say, when I first saw this scene, I didn't ever, or even the first few seasons, it didn't occur to me that these two would be a romantic pairing. But I guess looking back on it with hindsight, you do see something there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of love there between those two.
We need to reroute the plane.
I appreciate on some level they're trying to make this work with May and Ward. I guess to me, the point that it doesn't really lead anywhere kind of makes these moments feel like, why are we even doing this? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I get that beginning with this episode, they're trying to convey that the two may have some kind of feelings for each other, even though that they on outward appearance they would claim that they don't. But in the next few episodes, there's going to be a whole dedicated episode to May kind of revealing that she is a little bit jealous, and then here you saw Ward act a little bit jealous, and I'm like, okay, but that kind of goes nowhere, and I feel like they kind of dropped that. So I don't know how much it really works, David.
The way I kind of like just looked about that scene, I was even gonna say like, what's kind of cool about not remembering what happens like afterwards in later seasons and everything, is that I kind of look at that scene and think, oh, did he actually care in that moment? Was he actually thinking? Was he taking this as an opportunity? Like, okay, there's something. Did I see something there between the two? Or like, how can I manipulate this or something like that? So that's sort of how I look at scenes like that.
Now, we may not know what it is, but we do know that it came from Cybertech.
Right. Unknown origin. And the one we found in Peru was a machine, but they don't always have to be, right?
No. Now I've read about all kinds. Weapons, spacecraft, energy sources. I suppose the only thing they really do have in common is that they're dangerous.
Well, it is complicated because at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, maybe he does feel something, but he feels a lot more something for her, for Sky.
Fitz, have you ever heard of an 084 being a person?
Which, if we're being honest, if we're allowed to believe that he had feelings for two different women at the same time, that probably should have been a bit of a giveaway as to what kind of person he was going to be.
We've been made! Oh, bloody hell!
Oh my god.
Help me move Simmons first. Can't just leave her like this. Look at her little face. She'd be so embarrassed.
Also, Gemma had no idea that she was gonna like make it out alive on that thing. So that's insane that she was just willing to sacrifice herself right in that moment.
Leave the package, Fitz.
What do we do? We're the only ones left.
Do you have an extra tracker?
Of course. You want to go in?
We can't let Quinn get away again. If Coulson were here, he wouldn't let that happen. Mike.
Hello. Sky. The clairvoyant told me to expect you.
Very effective effect.
Yeah.
I mean, what would hurt Agent Coulson more than to lose his pet project? Those aren't my orders.
What the hell did you do to him?
As soon as they got to the place, I was like, "Oh, is this the episode where she?"
yeah. This is the one. And it's really deceiving, isn't it? Because it begins with such a rollicking time, right? Like, it's going, it's so fun, and then this shit comes out to you and it hits you, right?
I don't remember the second shot. I was like, "Oh, okay, so she's gonna, obviously she makes it." Oh my god, dude, that was also like the way. Mike, took went away from those orders, like.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, God.
Simmons, get down here!
It looks bad, man.
Dude.
Just like, I remember in real time watching this, is like, this can't be happening, right? Like, this is like the main character of the show, really. You're not really going to be doing this, are you? Oh, like, oh God, they're not like coming to, the reaction of these people saying that she should be killed off or something. Like, oh my God, what's happening? Because they're committing so hard to this,
Is it working?
Is it working?
It's so hilarious, by the way, how this ended up being such a serious episode.
It dips, dude. Like,
right?
Again, roller coaster of a ride. You don't know what's gonna happen next, but they did such a good job pacing it.
Yeah. Notice that touch that she immediately began to, like a tear fell down from her eye. The second she knew it was Fitz's hand that touched her on the shoulder. And it's an important thing to keep track of because this is something they're going to share throughout the series. When they put just one hand on each other's shoulder, they know it's that person. Throughout the whole of the series. Man, the makeup did a really good job here with that. She looks fucking dead.
Dang.
Very easily. One of my favorite episodes of the whole show. And I know that to me, when I first watched this episode, I was blown away by just about what they were able to accomplish here in just their 13th episode. As you mentioned, it did feel very much like a roller coaster ride with so many ups and downs. Where we ended up is not where any of us thought we would be in this episode, and yet here we are. And like, to me, I would probably put this at the top of the 13 episodes we've looked at, revisiting, I should say, in this rewatch series. It just, I'm sorry, but as that other person said in the comments, it is sublime. But let's see what others thought about this, as we usually do here. This was Oliver Sava from AV Club. This is what Oliver is saying here, and I'm already a little bit frustrated with what he's choosing to open the paragraph, the review with. As a general fan of Marvel Comics and the majority of the Marvel Studios films, it brings me great pleasure to say that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is definitely improving, even if it's still not a must-watch show of the week. The producers have rearranged priorities behind the scenes and started to push the show in a more comic-influenced direction, meaning viewers can expect guest stars like Thor's Sif in upcoming episodes, as well as new characters pulled from the page like Asgardian Lorelei, Agent John Garrett, and Deathlock, the cyborg assassin that debuts in tonight's episode. Taking inspiration from the loads of published Marvel stories is a smart move, but that's not the thing that makes T.R.A.C.K.S an enjoyable episode of action television. That happens because the dialogue has more flavor, the fight choreography is sharper, and the story significantly raises the stakes while exploring the relationships between these characters. It's unclear why there are so many periods in the title of this episode. Like T.R.A. Although it's likely the writers thought they were being really clever with some shield on a train shorthand. The title could be also related to the structure of the actual episode, with each letter being isolated to reflect how the character threads are split between commercial breaks. The team is separated during a mission on a train and left without any way to communicate, so each segment focuses on what happens to a smaller group, keeping viewers as in the dark as the characters. This episode gets a lot of mileage out of its central train job concept by employing this structure, building suspense in a way previous episodes haven't been able to. This episode contains some major events, including the debut of Mike Peterson as Deathlock and Skye getting shot point blank in the gut multiple times, but it's the smaller moments that really make the story work. The team infiltrates the train undercover in pairs, and it gives writers Lauren LeFranc and Rafe Judkins the opportunity to fully explore specific relationships, strengthening the show's characters by strengthening their bonds with each other. The first pair is Ward and May, who have emerged as the show's primary romance and are now trying to figure out what to do now that Coulson knows about their affair. Then there's Fitz and Skye, who have a lighter, more adorable dynamic, with the former fawning over the latter, as well as a shared inexperience in the field that puts them in over their heads. The last pair also happens to be my favorite, with Coulson playing Simmons' absent American father, who was only in Italy to spread her mother's ashes, an elaborate backstory created by Simmons about their catastrophic improvisation attempt in the hub. She is a person that excels at preparation, and she has dedicated herself to a script that needs to be performed if she's going to feel comfortable about the mission. Clark Gregg and Elizabeth Henstridge have great chemistry in this scene, and it's a lot of fun to see Henstridge indulge her comedic side. There's generally a lot more humor in this episode, which ultimately makes it feel more Whedon-esque than any previous script. By beginning with more comedy, the writers are able to give the story's final moments more weight, working with the light/dark contrast that is a common element of Joss Whedon's TV shows. Fitz and Skye's plot also starts with humor as Skye tries out a horrible Scottish accent before making her partner blush by pretending to be his new bride. And the playful flirtation between the two makes them much more likable. It much more sensible to romantically link expert hacker Skye with the tech lead Fitz instead of Commando Ward, and hopefully the writers continue to bring these characters together. Okay. Try not to do too much commentary on that, but some people, I guess, really wanted Skye and Fitz to be a thing. Of course, that's assuming Skye doesn't die next episode, because she gets shot pretty bad this week. While I wouldn't shed any tears if Skye didn't survive, I would feel the tiniest tinge of disappointment in not learning why she's an 084, so that's definitely a good move on the writer's part. The big event this week is the appearance of Deathlock. Do you already know what my issue with that statement is?
Yeah.
What do you mean the biggest event? Deathlock, okay, cool. And it's a nice little thing that happens in there. But how can you say that's the big thing that happens? Skye practically got shot to death. Like, I'm sorry, but what?
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole thing goes on about Deathlock this, Deathlock that, which again, I'm not going to read that. The first half of the episode is devoted to Coulson, Ward, and May, who confront personal issues and they're thrown from the train. While Coulson and Ward try to figure out how the train disappeared before their very eyes, May is tortured before the unleashing the beast within, and the two threads converge with one badass shot of a wet, bloody May throwing a knife in the back of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s turncoat Italian contact. Both plots involve slick fight choreography that hits harder than anything we've seen on the series yet, starting with Ward's action sequence in a cramped train compartment that shows how the close quarters combat can look especially brutal on screen. The full might of Melinda May finally comes through when she escapes from torture and she actually gets the chance to use real weapons like guns and knives to eliminate her targets. That being said, the Night-Night gun looks pretty cool this week, particularly during the sequence where Ward walks into an enemy territory with guns blazing. Skye has almost no field training and it didn't attend the S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy, so of course she's not suitable to be on a dangerous life or death mission on a moving train. Coulson is to blame, yes, but so is Ward, especially because he's her supervising officer. He knows that Skye isn't fit for the field, so he should make sure she doesn't end up there, no matter what Coulson insists. After making it off the train and over to Ian Quinn's villa retreat, Skye... Okay, this is just recapping. I don't care about Skye enough to be deeply affected by this plot development, but I believe its impact on these characters. Simmons' private freakout hits hard after her previous confession that she's not good with improvisation, and this reminder of their occupational mortality forces Ward and May to really consider their future together. The second half of this season has seen the writers add more layers to the characters and the story, and T.R.A.C.K.S is an episode that provides a lot of hope for the series' future, balancing fun superhero action and witty dialogue with higher emotional stakes and a stronger focus on interpersonal dynamics. This show should deliver the same thrill for the Marvel movies, on a weekly basis. This week's episode comes pretty damn close. Okay. Probably the most positive review these guys have given this show.
Yeah, pretty much. You can just tell though which part they were more interested in, which is the reference. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Deathlock. Yeah. Okay. And then Eric Goldman, IGN. Momentum is a crucial thing, and it's one place Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has really struggled. There have been signs of improvement and some notably stronger episodes, but it hasn't maintained a consistently great level. Coming off the last episode, which was one of the better ones, I was really hopeful this one would be strong. And thankfully, it was. In fact, it was perhaps the show's best episode yet. The episode using the technique of covering the same period from the point of view of various characters was quite well used, with some fun reveals. Okay, it seemed likely May was involved in the already hot-wired truck Coulson and Ward took, but when we found out they'd been frozen rather than the train vanishing in front of them, it was a very cool moment. And damn, how about May kicking some serious ass here and laying waste to that room of guys? Mm-hmm. This episode's format allowed pretty much everyone to take the spotlight briefly, but May was the one who really stepped it up a notch in her segment. Couple that with her running across the train in that cat suit and her quick escape from the parachute. Wonky TV FX aside, you had an episode that really helped push May as a top-level S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who seems like she could be running with the likes of Black Widow and Hawkeye. And while it wasn't May level, I have to commend Ward's fun fight scene too, taking on a group who tried to accost him on a train, and note that it was good to see him not be taken by surprise by the suspicious woman demanding his help. While the episode quickly got very intense and dramatic, there were some great humorous moments as well, including Simmons' overly prepared undercover backstory with Coulson and Fitz's take on an American accent, including his request for some affordable and big portions, and yes, Ward and then Coulson versus the hollow table was very funny. This was a jam-packed episode. It even had a Stan Lee cameo. And that would have worked as an entertaining hour that had fun with the format in and of itself, yet also delivered a notable amount of plot turns for the overall story. Seeing Mike return and actually become the first incarnation of Deathlock was really cool, and I must commend those in the comments who pondered the possibility when we last saw Mike. The one place this episode faltered is a familiar one, Skye. Oh, she was fine in the episode, though she really had no big shining moment. But the entire end of the episode put a lot of would-be emotional weight on the possibility of her death, and it just wasn't really there. Once more, we were told about Skye doing some big stuff. And it was meant to add to the Skye as really becoming quite the amazing S.H.I.E.L.D. agent person statement we keep getting about actually experiencing it for ourselves. There seems to be, David, a big disconnect here. Because as we're watching this show, I feel like they are really showing us how far she's come. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be honest with you, I felt pretty early on she seemed pretty capable to begin with. But her skills have been improving in the 13 episodes that we've seen her. I mean, she's come a long way for sure. Yeah, is she in over her head to an extent still? Yeah, but she's still starting out. But I think there seems to be a disconnect, because I am definitely seeing growth here from this character who we met just 13 episodes ago. And yet, there is seemingly a bit of a hurdle that is kind of proving to be difficult for some people to kind of actually care about her, because they're saying in these reviews that, for one, they're not feeling much of the emotional impact because they don't care too much about her, and they actually don't think that they're seeing too much. They're seeing a lot on the show that has, proven the case that she has earned this. Eric Goldman saying, Coulson being so panicked over saving her after she was shot, though the shooting itself was pretty damn intense moment, just rang false, because there really isn't enough weight around Skye or Coulson's report to earn that, okay? Simmons breaking down alone with Fitz was a well-done moment, though, as she let down her guard after all that had happened. Lastly, I have to praise that little Blonsky mention. Coulson had at one point, The Incredible Hulk remains the oddity among the MCU movies, as the only one not to get its own sequel. Well, it did get a sequel, right? It's called She-Hulk later on. On top of that, recasting Bruce Banner makes it sometimes feel less connected, even though it's part of the continuity. I kept hoping that it's really interesting side commentary here about the Incredible Hulk. No one ever talks about it, but then again, there have been characters from that movie that have just gone on to have life outside of that movie. Mm-hmm. Like, the main villain of that movie is about to be a major player, this time played by Harrison Ford in the upcoming Captain America movie. Like, who would have thought of that? Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, there's that. Anyway, those are the reviews. David?
Yeah. They seemed okay reviews, basically. I mean, I'd be surprised if anyone would say anything bad about this, just because, like we mentioned, everything just moves along perfectly, right? And all that, and I love the pacing of it, going from suspenseful action scenes to, it goes down, but they kind of just move on to what the next plan is, and then we get some jokes, and then basically we go back up from there. So it's an incredible pacing, and I think it did that on purpose just to trick you, so that, because every single time whenever the characters were in danger, some would pop up, and then the moment Sky was in danger, she gets hurt.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think, look, we've said it for various moments in this episode. I think it's just, when I watched this episode for the first time, it was just really hard to believe how quickly they were able to improve. Like, we got an episode like this, and again, not that the episodes that we got beforehand were bad, but I feel like something truly clicked with this episode where it's like, whoa, I think we've really begun to unlock some special sauce in this show. And we can already see what a vast improvement 13 Weeks made. And I feel like from this point going forward, the show is here. But I think to me, these last few episodes are when the show really begins to arrive and come into its own. And I think we're going to see that, especially as we ramp up, because we are less than 10 episodes away from the end of the first season. So we're getting there, which is hard to believe already. How quickly this has kind of gone on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it means we're also getting closer and closer to the big twist of the season 2. So it's, again, part of the joy of doing this is just reliving these episodes. And I was hoping that some things you would remember some things as we would go, and you saying that, oh, this is the episode where this happens to Sky when she walks into that room downstairs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty big shit happens.
Yeah.
And honestly, I guess if you don't care about Sky, I can understand why you wouldn't really feel the emotional weight of what happened there. But I got to tell you, it was very moving, and it continues to be very moving. I don't know. Maybe it's just me and how much I already know about these characters, but I remember that when they've had these emotional moments from these first 13 episodes, it always hit. The actors were always able to make me feel that. And that's part of why I feel, for me anyway, and for many people out there, makes this such a special show. And such a special show to revisit, because I really do get to feel like you're a member of the family as well. We have to recall this is one of those shows where we have a ragtag group of people who are a makeshift family of sorts, and they do become that. And they become that in various shapes and forms throughout the 7 seasons, but we're already 13 episodes here, and we're already beginning to see the first iteration of this family, and we're going to see next week how they're going to fight for one of their own, and go, again, move heaven and earth to prevent one of their own from dying, basically. Mm-hmm. And again, you got to remember that at this point, we're operating under an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. era where we already don't know. Maybe the writers do know that at some point, or I can't remember, and I can't say exactly when Jedmo decided that Sky was going to be Daisy Johnson, Quake from the comics. But at this point, no one's thinking that. It's like, if we already knew they were building up to that, I can understand, well, they're not going to kill this person off. But you got to understand that in this moment of the show, when so much hatred is being directed at this character, I don't know, man. It's kind of dicey, right? Because this has happened. I mean, look at Rose Tico in the Star Wars movies. Like, she got so much hate, I don't even know what for, except for, misogyny and racism. Now, for those Star Wars fans who would argue it's about her plotline and her character, okay, fine. I'm not having this fight here, but I'm just saying that there was a lot of blatant misogyny and racism against that character. I mean, when you're going to call her a fat Asian bitch, I don't know what you think you're going to be attacked at. I mean, that sounds pretty racist and pretty misogynistic and also fatphobic to me. Also, she's not even anywhere near fat. I don't understand where that came from, but that's one of the common things that I heard. And then what did J.J. Abrams do? He gave her 90 seconds of screen time. Is that what? 90? Was it even 90 seconds?
I don't remember, but
it was a sad statistic. She went from a main character to a cameo. So that's what I mean when I say it's like this has happened many times when fandom goes really hard on a character saying we hate this, we hate this, we hate this, and then in the future installments they pull back dramatically. I mean, Jar Jar again. It's like the Jar Jar syndrome. I mean, he was a main character, if there even was a main character in the Phantom Menace, and then in episode 2, he was there.
Yeah.
I mean, he had one big scene, but he was mostly just there. So, I'm really glad that's not at all what... And I'm not saying that behind the scenes that was ever seriously in danger, that they were going to fire her, like, right off the show. But considering how toxic fandoms can be and the impact they can have on the things they supposedly love, you never really know how it's going to turn out. But you don't hear too much Sky Daisy hatred nowadays, do you?
Probably not.
No. I wonder when the big turn happened, but I do have to think that perhaps making her a comic book character might have done a lot of... Right? Isn't it crazy how it always goes back to that? Just give her powers, and it's like, oh, we loved you all along. Yeah, sure. Okay. Great. Anything else to say about this episode? Where would you put it? In the 13 that we've watched so far. I mean, I already put it at the top of all 13. Like, this is like really good.
Oh yeah, for sure. I should maybe top 5, but I mean, we had 10 more episodes to go, so...
No, for sure. We got 9 more, I want to say, right? Right? We have 9 more until the end of season 1? Yeah, we have 22, so we have 9 more.
Yeah.
9 more. So we have 9 more, and then at the end of the season, we can rank all the episodes. But for sure, this one will be one of the top ones, for sure. All right, guys. Well, as always, feel free to comment about anything that we had to say here. If you agree or disagree, please leave it down below on the comments, and we'll read them next time. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.